Dear students, welcome to our first lesson. It will be on the types of tourism. When we think about traveling to a place, very often what comes to mind first is traveling to the seaside, or maybe a skiing holiday, perhaps visiting a city, or we can even remember that some people travel on business. But usually, we cannot think of many other types of tourism.
So today we are going to look into this topic in more detail. When people visit a place in order to get to know its culture, we can talk about cultural tourism. When people visit cities like London, Paris, Barcelona, mostly they want to visit some monuments, museums, palaces, fortresses, galleries. They want to experience the culture of the place. And these tourists are called cultural tourists. However, sometimes people just want to relax. They want to have a very good time with their family or friends. And then they decide to go to the beach or maybe to an amusement park like Disneyland. In that case, we talk about leisure tourism. In British English, we pronounce this word as leisure, while in American English, we call that leisure tourism. On the other hand, some people travel on business. Sometimes they have business meetings that they want to attend face to face, but sometimes they participate in different conferences, congresses, seminars, and all these reasons for traveling can be categorized as business tourism. Shopping tourism becomes more and more prominent nowadays, and especially in places like London or China, we can really see flocks of shopping tourists. Sometimes people go shopping for cheaper goods, and sometimes they go shopping for quality goods. Whatever the case is, they enjoy it greatly, and holidays such as Christmas um, are usually the time of the year when shopping tourism flourishes most because that's the time of sales. Medical tourism is a kind of tourism you probably haven't heard of a lot. In Serbia, dental tourism is more or less well developed, and also when it comes to plastic surgery, foreigners come to Serbia to be operated on. However, some countries earn a big profit from medical tourism. In this chart here, you can see that some countries earn a lot through medical tourism, and some good examples are the USA, Turkey, South Korea, India, Germany, Thailand, Malaysia, Iran, Mexico, and some other countries. People travel to get different sorts of operations, sometimes cardiovascular, sometimes that's something connected with some other conditions. And usually, if they recover successfully after the treatment, they continue the trip by going sightseeing and traveling around the country itself. So they do not only visit the hospital and the particular city the hospital is situated in, but very often, if they can do it, they continue the trip around the country, and that's why medical tourism can be very profitable for one state. Now, sports tourism is something that young people enjoy a lot. We can only mention some things like Olympic Games or European football championship or something like that. And we can imagine crowds of people who cheerfully cheer their favorite teams. Sports tourism is an opportunity to gather lots of people in one place in particular time, and it brings quite good profit to the place where these games or matches are organized. Religious tourism is well developed in some countries. For example, in Montenegro, we can mention the monastery of Ostrog as a hub for religious tourism. Also, some countries like Greece have very good, well developed religious tourism. When we think of Mount Athos, for example, the most famous places where people go to pay worship is certainly Jerusalem for Christian people or Mecca for Muslim people. In some other Asian countries, there are also places that people visit for religious reasons. In France, for example, there is a place called Lourdes, which is one of um, the famous places for religious tourism in Europe. Educational tourism is the next form of tourism that is developed in certain countries. In the UK, lots of people um, come to um, polish their English language, to finish some courses, to get some certificates, perhaps. So language learning is a good example of educational tourism. And also, if people study abroad in general, or if they participate in student exchange, we can also call that educational tourism. Uh, when people come to a country in order to gain some sort of education, again, usually they do not just stay in one place and just attend their lectures or courses, but they go to day trips to various places, and in this respect, they are real tourists. Adventure tourism is a specialty of some countries like New Zealand, but you can find adventure tourism everywhere where the countryside is beautiful or exotic. Some examples of adventure tourism would be jungle exploration, rafting, parachuting. In this photo, you can see one boy who is zip lining in New Zealand. Nowadays, we also have some form of adventure tourism developed in Serbia as well. It can be rafting on the river Tara, or maybe zip lining on some of Serbian mountains. Uh, in some other countries, it can be elephant riding, camel riding, or participating in extreme sports. Rural tourism is considered a good option for families with children, for older people, but also sometimes for couples who just want some peace and quiet in the beautiful scenery. Uh, Rural tourists usually engage in some activities like trekking, which is actually walking in the countryside, horse riding, fishing, but it can also be mushroom picking and some other activities that make their time pleasant there. Now, there is one term that is probably new to you and very different from the previous um, terms, and that is outbound tourism. It is a technical term in tourism that is used to describe the situation when tourists travel abroad. Here in the picture, you can see China outbound tourism market. In other words, we can see a map of China and we can see that the Chinese tourists travel from there to other countries. So when we talk about Chinese outbound tourism, we actually talk about countries that the Chinese like to visit. These can be some European countries or maybe some American countries. When we talk about Serbian outbound tourism, we can say that Serbian people usually go to Greece or Montenegro uh, in summer and that they go to Austria or Italy or France, perhaps Bulgaria, um, when they go on skiing holidays. So, when we talk about Serbian outbound tourism, we talk about countries that Serbian tourists like to visit and visit often. The opposite term of outbound tourism is inbound tourism. It is the situation when a country receives foreign tourists. So, in this photo, we can see lots of airplanes wanting to land um, on the east coast of the USA. So, when we talk about USA's inbound tourism, we talk about actually the people who visit um, the USA from abroad. If we talk about Serbian inbound tourism, we can say that people from Turkey, Germany, um, and perhaps a few other countries like to come and visit Serbia. Finally, we come to domestic tourism. Uh, Simply, it's the situation when residents of one country travel within national borders, when they do not go abroad. During this epidemic, we have seen that domestic tourism flourished in Serbia because lots of people considered um, visiting some Serbian mountains or Serbian countryside a safe option. Uh, Many countries develop domestic tourism very well. For example, France is one of the countries that develops domestic tourism very well, and people like to go to French countryside. And now, what you see here is one text. It is entitled Types of Tourism, and it is a summary of what I have just said. Types of tourism overview. People travel for various reasons: to see famous places and monuments, to visit friends or relatives, to relax, or to go shopping. According to the purpose of travel, there are numerous types of tourism: cultural tourism, leisure tourism, business tourism, shopping tourism, medical tourism, sports tourism, religious tourism, educational tourism, adventure tourism, and rural tourism. Big cities such as London, Istanbul, Berlin, or New York can offer different types of tourism to their visitors, while smaller destinations such as coastal resorts or monasteries can offer just one type of tourist experience. Tourism can also be classified in terms of the direction and scope of traveling. If people travel to a foreign country, this type of travel is called outbound tourism. For example, the British often travel to Spanish seaside, so we say that the British often make outbound trips to Spain. When a country receives foreign visitors, we speak of inbound tourism. For example, Greece and Croatia rely on inbound tourism and count on receiving foreign tourists. However, some countries develop domestic tourism as well, so that people travel within national borders without leaving the country. Large countries such as the USA or China have well developed domestic tourism. In Europe, The French tend to make lots of domestic trips. After this summary, we are going to read a few texts that illustrate different types of tourism, and then we are going to watch some video clips showing examples of different types of tourism as well. So now we have come to the reading part of the lesson. Read the text about destinations offering different types of travel. What is the meaning of the words in bold? Which types of tourism are illustrated by the text? So I hope that you will find these texts interesting and that you will learn something new about some places in the world. So let's have a look at the first text. Lourdes, the primary city of pilgrimage in Europe after Rome, each year welcomes millions of visitors. It is known throughout the world as a holy place where, in 1858, Virgin Mary appeared 18 times in a cave near a river to Bernadette Soubirous, a young 14-year-old girl from Lourdes. In the photo, you can see the photo of Lourdes. It is situated in France. The meaning of the word pilgrimage is a visit to a holy place or to a very special place where you want to see to show your respect. The translation would be hodočašće, and obviously this is one example of religious tourism. The next text is about Brighton in the UK. Brighton is a growing destination in the world of language travel, and it's easy to see why. With its relaxed seaside vibe and a young, open-minded population, this coastal town offers an incredible, authentic English experience you'll remember forever. In the photo, you see the beach in Brighton, and this is one example of educational tourism. The next text is about London and the famous Oxford Street. There is not a single shopping lover who hasn't heard of the famous Oxford Street in London. With more than 300 shops, designer outlets, and souvenir stores, this street has anything you can ask for, whether you're looking for sporty clothes, antique stuff, furniture, or you want to dress up for some special occasion. Designer outlets that are mentioned in the text are shops where designer clothes are sold directly to customers. This is one example of shopping tourism. Text number 4 is about India and its medical tourism. India is one of the key players in the medical tourism industry as it strives to provide healthcare services with cutting-edge technology. Healthcare in India saves patients between 65% to 90% of money compared to the cost of similar service in the USA, making India one of the most visited countries for health care. Cutting-edge technology that you can expect in India's hospitals is the most modern technology. And the last example is connected with tourism in Indonesia. Bali, Indonesia's most famous island, is located to the west of Java in the Lesser Sunda Islands. It is world-renowned for its scenic rice terraces, excellent cuisine, wonderful beaches, and a galore of culture and tradition. With its elaborate temples, endless coastline, some of the world's best coral reefs and waterfalls, Bali combines leisure and adventure impeccably. A dizzying combination of spiritual awakening and hard partying all into one, Bali is where people from all over the world come to lose themselves in. So you see that this text is very beautiful. It has a very good marketing vocabulary. The word scenic means beautiful and it is used for the countryside. And also there is a couple of other words that you can look up in the dictionary if you want to enjoy the text to the full. Here we see that this is a good example of rural tourism or leisure tourism.